Good afternoon. First of all, I want to explain at their coordinators meeting today to September. PETI coordinators took the following decisions. The agenda was adopted. Coordinators approved the draft agenda for PETI meeting of 30 September and agreed to extend the deadline for suggestions for the draft agenda of the 25 to 26 October meeting until 20 September. Proposals for future meetings, coordinators agreed to include petition 721 of 2014 in the agenda of 30 September. Coordinators agreed to include petition 1466 of last year in the agenda of October, and coordinators reject the request to apply the urgency procedure to petition 621 of this year. Coordinators recall the need to launch work on a motion for a resolution on the safety of parking lots in the European Union and ask about the ongoing work on the motion for resolution on the European Union UK new students' mobility scheme. Coordinators agreed to prepare a list of topics to be discussed with Vice President Šefčovič and to share the list with his cabinet before the meeting. Thank you very much. Yes, sorry, it's true. And now we're continuing the two last points, 17 and 18. Petición 17 es una petición, la 323 del 2021, presentada por una persona de nacionalidad francesa, acompañada de 4 firmas, sobre la supuesta vulneración de determinados derechos de los ciudadanos binacionales europeos y estadounidenses como consecuencia de la Ley de Cumplimiento Tributario de Cuencas Extranjeras. También tenemos la petición 1470/2020, también presentada por el señor Ronald Arias, de nacionalidad neerlandesa, sobre problemas con la FATCA tras un cambio de banco. Y también vamos a ver la petición 394/2021, presentada por el peticionario señor Nicolás, de nacionalidad estadounidense, relativa a la exención por parte de los nacionales estadounidenses de la normativa sobre productos de inversión minorista, empaquetados y de productos de inversión basados en seguros. Tenemos a los 3 peticionarios conectados. We have the 3 petitioners connected. Okay. So I'm going to give the floor to the first petitioner from France for 5 minutes. Every petitioner will have 5 minutes. Go ahead and welcome.
Señora Presidenta, dear MEPs, and to all here today, buenas tardes y gracias por su presencia. FATCA again. 5 years have passed since JR's first anti-FATCA petitions, and things have gotten much worse. The authors of this petition, one of the 4 anti-FATCA petitions to date, are the Dutch Accidental Americans Group and the Collective of Binational Investment Bankers. The authors of this petition, we are here today to inform Parliament that the Commission and Euratom have taken the lead in discriminating 1.2 million EU-US citizens, as well as around 1 million US citizens. This discrimination takes place in one of the 3 EU-regulated financial documents that constitute the legal framework of the Capital Markets Union. All Europeans should know that the Commission in Euratom's discriminatory behaviour is followed with total impunity, of course, by 21 of the world's largest asset management companies. In yet another gross breach of EU law, 1.2 million binationals have been deprived of their EU citizenship. You see, we are now treated as US citizens by all 27 member states that exchange our financial data with a non-member state, the USA. This is contrary to the European Court of Justice's decision in Micheletti versus el Gobierno de Cantabria, decision dealing with nationality and EU citizenship. Of our 14 requests to the European Parliament, we want to mention 2 in particular. The vote of a motion of censure against to remove the discriminatory fundamental rights violating von der Leyen Commission. The Commission as outraged by Hungary's and Poland's behaviour towards LGBTQs, but finds it perfectly normal to prohibit us to purchase short and next generation EU bonds. Another request is that Parliament order ESMA to investigate 11 national competent authorities that officially authorise discrimination in those EU regulated documents, as well as their circulation. Those are the competent authorities of Luxembourg, Ireland, Spain, Italy, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Austria, and Germany. Here, Article 51 of the Charter, of course, applies to the Commission, to Euratom, to the national competent authorities, and to all those asset management companies when applying EU law. We cannot explain all the facts in 5 minutes aloud, so please go to our website and EU petition-FATCA.eu. There you will have access to our petition, to the list of directives, regulations, articles of the treaty and the charter being breached. There you will also have direct access to the 1,300 EU regulated discriminatory documents, including, of course, those of the Commission and Euratom. There we explain in detail the legal tricks used by the Commission, Euratom and the British lawyers in Luxembourg, along with those of 21 asset management companies, to discriminate 2 million European residents. Is the never again of Remembrance Day just empty Commission's propaganda? So it seems. Since World War II, among fellow Europeans, never had so many been discriminated so much for the benefit of so few. Gracias, Señora Presidenta. Dank u wel to our MEPs. Merci to the translators. Obrigado to the Petty Secretariat. And of course, tack to the techie.
Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Arias. 5 minutes. Thank you very much and welcome.
Mevrouw de voorzitter, dank u wel. Ik zal hem zo houden. Ik heb mijn petitie ingediend. Het begint als volgt. Schaam u. Schaam u. Ik heb onlangs al eerdere petitievergaderingen bekeken via YouTube. Zelf heb ik een van de vergaderingen in Brussel op 12 november 2019 bijgewoond als toehoorder. En toen kwam ik erachter dat wetten en regelgeving hier niet meer toe doen. Immers de petitie 1088 van JR, waarin heel veel onderzoek was verwerkt, met bovendien enorm veel kennis van zaken en verwijzingen naar de te zaken doende wetten en regelgeving, had ook weinig tot niets teweeggebracht. Welgeteld 2 brieven zijn er geschreven naar Amerika en dat was het dan. Persoonlijk kwam ik in 2018 in aanraking met FATCA, omdat ik van bank moest wisselen. Vanaf dat moment is mijn leven en dat van mijn partner een hel geworden. Werkelijk elke dag stress tot een hartproblemen toe. Ook mijn familie en vrienden worden erdoor geraakt. Ze durven niet eens meer naar te vragen. Ik ging mezelf inlezen en ik heb wat vergaderingen teruggekeken en wat trof ik? Politici die tijdens vergaderingen over dit onderwerp schaapachtig kijken, zichzelf verschuilen en naar elkaar wijzen. Tja, dat grote Amerika. Let op. Amerika heeft 332 miljoen inwoners en Europa, toen nog 28 lidstaten, nu 27, in totaal 453 miljoen inwoners. Voor deze burgers zit u hier en niet voor Amerika. Intussen werd ik in Nederland al gebrandmerkt als witwasser, belastingontduiker, zelfs een snufje financiering van terrorisme en ik werd beschuldigd van valsheid in geschriften. Toen volgde ik de PETI-commissievergadering op 10 november 2020. Dat was voor mij de druppel die mij de emmer deed overlopen. Een voorzitter die alleen maar op haar telefoon zit te kijken, zat te gapen, tussen haakjes verveling. Bovendien kapten ze de sprekers snel af. Er werd gesproken over bilaterale overeenkomsten in de wetenschap dat alle lidstaten hetzelfde probleem hebben. En dan is het ineens niet maar één Europa, maar er wordt het probleem verschoven naar individuele landen. Er heerst echt een verdeel- en heerspolitiek. De accidenten Amerikanen, Europese burgers leven in angst, houden zich onder de radar, zijn dus in principe ondergedoken. En waarom? Handelsbelangen. Leven in een vrije wereld? Onzin. Alles wordt op deze manier kapot gemaakt. Mijn vader was als Nederlandse luchtmachtofficier in Amerika gedetacheerd. Mijn moeder mocht hem vergezellen van de Nederlandse overheid en was al in verwachting van mij. Ik ben dus in Amerika geboren en ik kwam op 1-jarige leeftijd terug naar Nederland. Hier ben ik opgegroeid, geschoold, heb je altijd in loondienst gewerkt en altijd netjes aan mijn belastingplicht voldaan. Nogmaals, denken dat ik beschermd word door jullie, door de wetgeving en regelgeving? Nee. Jullie lappen deze allemaal aan jullie laars. Ik zocht de media op om bekendheid te geven aan deze idiote toestand. Werd na een publicatie in een gerenommeerde krant platgebeld door mensen die in paniek. Ze zochten hulp, raad, advies. En wat ik het meest verdrietig vond, een man op leeftijd belde mij op. Zijn vrouw is ook als kind van een Nederlands militair en een Nederlandse moeder in Amerika geboren. Zelf was ze niet meer in staat om mijzelf te woord te staan, vanwege de stress. Haar man vertelde mij dat ze hadden gehoopt dat ze zouden zijn overleden voordat zij worden getroffen door het gedrocht FATCA. En blijven zodoende zo lang mogelijk onder de radar. Dit is toch vreselijk? Schaam u allen. Zoals gezegd heb ik de vorige PETI-commissievergadering opnieuw bekeken. Daar zeggen de Europese parlementsleden keurig nog sorry tegen de leden van de verantwoordelijke commissies. Het is niet persoonlijk bedoeld, zeggen ze dan. Ik doe dat niet. Als jullie plaatsnemen in zo'n commissie, zijn jullie wel degelijk verantwoordelijk. Op 1 november 2020 ben ik begonnen met het idee om zelf een verzoekschrift in te dienen. Op 10 november 2020 dus die afschuwelijke PETI-commissievergadering in, waarin JR opnieuw zijn petitie 1088 onder de aandacht bracht. En waar de heer Noceda met bewijs aankwam dat er puur gelogen is door commissieleden richting het parlement. En wat gebeurt er met deze informatie? U raadt het al, niks. Mijn advies, lees die verslaglegging nog eens aandachtig door. Ik vind het misleiding van een parlement, dat vind ik nogal wat. Mijn concept verzoekschrift heb ik laten lezen door bekende leden van het parlement. En zij waarschuwden mij dat er te veel woede uit blijkt. Dat hoort u waarschijnlijk ook uit mijn stem. En dat mijn verzoekschrift niet ontvankelijk verklaard zou worden. En toch heb ik het niet veranderd. Het beschrijft immers de waarheid. Op 14 december 2020 heb ik het verzoekschrift digitaal verzonden en kreeg keurig een dag later ontvangstbevestiging. Het wachten begon. Op 14 maart 2021 heb ik het secretariaat gevraagd om een update. Geen antwoord. Ik vroeg me ondertussen waarom er geen wettelijk termijnverbandwinning bestond. Ik heb ook Sophie in het Veld gevraagd of zij misschien kon uitzoeken wat de status was van mijn petitie. Op 7 mei 2021 kreeg ik bericht dat mijn verzoekschrift was toegelaten en dat deze open stond voor support. Ik had inmiddels Sophie al een mail gestuurd aan de financiële commissie en aandacht gevraagd voor het gedrocht FATCA. En deze mail was gericht aan onder andere Martin Havlacek, Giles Boyer, Olivier Chachel, Dracos Pislara, Monica Semedo, Stephanie Jong-Cortin, Billy Keller en Michael Korvarik. Allemaal lid van de Renew Europe Group. Een van haar slogans zeggen ze dan: Our Europe, One Europe. Ik vraag aan deze mensen, wat bedoelen jullie met deze slogan en hebben jullie inmiddels actie genomen voor jullie 1,2 miljoen staatsburgers geraakt door FATCA? Het bleek immers al dat tijdens de zoektocht van Sophie in het Veld sinds 2014 duizenden documenten al in bezit waren van de commissie. En dan durven nog zijn MP's nog te beweren dat het probleem FATCA helemaal nieuw is. Hier beëindig ik even mijn presentatie. Ik dank u wel.
Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Lee, another petitioner, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and I would also like to thank the PETI Committee for providing me the opportunity to speak today. To introduce myself as the petitioner, I am a U.S. citizen residing in the Netherlands on a work permit and living with my Dutch partner. I have spent my entire professional life in the European Union and am working towards my permanent residence and citizenship. I personally consider it a testament to the strength of the EU's representative bodies that the PETI submission process is open to any legal EU resident, even though those whose citizenship in a member state is still a work in progress. That said, I do not wish to create the illusion that this petition does not concern EU citizens. In fact, it's arguably more relevant for EU-US citizens whose ties to the United States might be more distant than my own. To summarize my petition, 0394/2021 concerns how consumer protections provided under the MiFID II regulations fail to achieve their intended purpose for a subset of the EU population. While most residents benefit from protections against shady investment brokers and products, anyone falling under the definition of a U.S. person is instead forced into a financial no man's land. To remedy this, my petition seeks for the EU to permit U.S. person individuals to elect to waive their consumer protections to invest in alternative investments, namely those that exist in the U.S. regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission. The precedent for this already exists. For individuals far richer than myself, Okay. I will slow down slightly. For individuals far richer than myself, they can be elected
Excuse me,
professional
petitioner.
clients.
Can you go a little bit slower? Because the interpreters, it's difficult to interpret you.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So for individuals far richer than myself, they can be elective professional clients, assuming a greater degree of personal responsibility for their choices. In terms of who benefits from this proposal, the ability for individuals to waive their consumer protections, either explicitly or implicitly through the action of investing in the United States, would mitigate some of the harms created by the interaction between extraterritorial U.S. law that the EU chooses to tolerate and well-intentioned domestic EU law. This would benefit EU-U.S. citizens, U.S. citizens resident in the EU, and EU spouses of U.S. citizens that made the ill-informed decision to file married filing jointly with their U.S. spouse. Note that these three groups include accidental Americans and children born in the EU to a European parent and an American parent. In this increasingly international world, I urge this Parliament to consider the effects of a growing population of residents barred from accessing the financial services that their fellow citizens, both EU and US, have access to. Stated succinctly, it is detrimental to individual personal finances, but also to the treasuries of our countries of residence. Without the means to grow wealth and save for the future, we are a smaller tax base and are more likely to become dependent on public benefits in the future. The EU barriers to US investment are relatively small. In short, a US broker may not sell an investment fund to someone that they know to be an EU citizen if that investment fund does not meet EU standards. To date, I am unaware of any US-based mutual funds or ETFs that meet even the most basic of the EU standards for investment funds, such as the issuance of key investor information documents. They instead comply with US regulations applicable to the majority of their customers. Since the introduction of MiFID II, I have personally experienced one account closure and multiple refusals on the basis of my residence in an EU country. The US barriers to EU investment are too numerous to list in this 5 minutes allotted, and so I will instead refer you to my petition and the supplement attached to it. And I will also note as well that FATCA is really the tip of the iceberg, and the problem extends far beyond just that. I urge this body to act on this proposal. While it does not address the root of the problem, it does mitigate some of its impacts, and it's something that can be done unilaterally by the EU and with the Commission and Council that have shown heavy resistance to fighting extraterritorial taxation imposed by the United States. This petition is asking the EU to do the bare minimum it can possibly do, recognizing that parts of EU law concerning due process, the primacy of EU law, and data protection are being systematically ignored. On that basis, I ask this body to please let US citizens consciously opt out of consumer protections that are actually harming them. I also urge this body to listen to other petitioners as well and to issue a strong rebuke of US extraterritorial taxation and to make this an actual diplomatic priority, taking unilateral measures if necessary. Do not simply defer to individual member states to be divided and conquered by the United States. The US interprets meek responses as consent for harsher measures, and there is more coming, including an expansion of FATCA and a proposed 40% asset tax on renunciation. Please take action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor to the Commission, to Mr. Ducolombier.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I'm from DG FISMA, so the Financial Services DG of the Commission. I'm head of unit in charge of retail financial services. I'm here with a few of my colleagues from other services of the Commission because this is, of course, an issue which cuts across several departments of the Commission. But my DG is chiefly responsible for handling these petitions. And I've been listening very carefully to what has just been reported by the petitioners. And I want to stress, I want them to believe that we are not remaining inactive. On the contrary, for the past years, we have repeatedly engaged in the dialogue, in the discussion with our American partners on FATCA. we do appreciate and fully understand all the hardships, the difficulties, the complexities, the challenges that are being met by the people, the accidental Americans, as they are called, and several of them today stressed this hardship, which can even sometimes become physical, and we are absolutely sorry about that. We have opened a dialogue, as I said. We have obtained substantial results, which are well known to the Parliament, to the PETI Committee, because we've reported them regularly. We have obtained some concessions from the US administration. We've obtained some clarifications from the US administration. And recently, the presidency, at the time it was the German presidency, wrote again to the administration of the US to say this is not enough. There are still some concrete challenges being met by the people. So just to cut a long story short, basically the US administration tried to facilitate several procedures. For example, the obtention of tax information that can be transmitted by the banks, or to reassure the banks that they should not discontinue right away their relationship with people not meeting the FATCA requirements. Or the US administration facilitated to relinquish the US citizenship when it is causing more problems than good. So this has been done, but we are fully aware of the fact that this may not be sufficient. It is still complex, for example, to relinquish citizenship. It is still expensive to do so. So we are continuing this pressure. And at the beginning of the year, in March and again in May, the Commission and the Portuguese presidency at the time had again contacts with the US administration, this time the new administration under Joe Biden. And we have observed a clear, I shouldn't say inflection of position, but much more constructive attitude from the US authorities, which has, in May of this year, resulted in further clarifications being supplied in a frequently asked questions document, which is published by the Internal Revenue Service. So, but this is clearly not yet, we are not there yet. This is not sufficient. We are fully in full agreement with you on that. We are continuing the discussions. We are also, by the way, continuing the discussions on the data transfer or data protection point of view. So it's not only from the tax point of view, but also from data protection. And there is also here a dialogue which has been initiated by the European Data Protection Board with the member states in view of securing full compliance of the bilateral treaties that they have contracted out with the US on taxation and other matters. So I don't want you to believe that we are ignoring the problem, which is an expression I just heard, or that we are that we are using legal tricks, or we believe this is perfectly fine. I mean, I officially dispute that. If this is an impression you have, let me dismiss it right away. We are very much active on that, and we are going to continue. We are regularly reporting progress made. Not enough. I agree with you on that, but we are regularly reporting the progress made to the Petition Committee. This is a complex issue, as you can imagine. All these FATCA treaties have been negotiated bilaterally by the member states and the US administration. This is not something the Commission has negotiated. We have no mandate to negotiate such an agreement with the US. So these are bilateral agreements. We are absolutely vigilant every day, all the time, to ensure that these agreements are in full compliance with EU law. I will finish on the problem presented by Mr. Lee, which is a bit new in a way. It is and it is proposing to disregard the application of EU consumer protection rules on EU territory. And I can see what you are getting at, and I might have sympathy for that. But I mean, from a legal point of view, we cannot disregard these EU rules. We cannot create an exception, if you wish, to EU rules that have been voted by the Council and the Parliament. We have no right, we have no power to exercise any forbearance or flexibility in that respect, even if these rules are causing some challenges to you. We cannot just simply discard them or have them not applied. All this information, the kids, which are provided for in PRIPS and in UCITS, they cannot suffer any exception, at least not of the kind that you have suggested. So I'm afraid we can't really follow you on that. We can't really say, yes, we are going to disregard the application of EU law. We can't do that. I mean, EU law applies on EU territory. And if these US funds are not in compliance with EU law, well, that's a problem. They should be in compliance with EU law to be offered on EU territory. That's very simple. And we cannot let them in, not respecting EU law. I mean, that would be another, if you want, reverse discrimination vis-à-vis our own companies and investment firms. So we can't really do that. So this is the situation as it stands today. We are, with my colleagues again in other DGs, DG Justice, DG Taxud, DG FISMA, we are taking this very seriously, believe me. This is not pleasant from me and my colleagues to be told every 3 months that we are, ignoring the hardship encountered by EU citizens. We are very much sharing this with you. We are doing what we can. And every time I will be invited by the Petition Committee, I will come back and I will duly inform you of the progress made. And I hope in the near future I will have more news. As I said before, we are seeing encouraging signals from the new US administration on this, and I hope and I trust that will be followed by concrete improvements that we are calling for. We, meaning again, Commission and the Member States. We are in full alignment with the Member States on that. So we are going to continue. This is a common cause we have with you, petitioners. It's not, we are not turning a blind eye or paying lip service to your problems. We are sharing them and we are acting on them. So that's what I wanted to say today to you, Madam Chairman, and I'm giving you the floor. And I'm, of course, available for questions, should there be any.
Muchísimas gracias por la extensión de su explicación. Ahora pasaríamos a los miembros diputados. Empezaría el señor Vince del IPP.
Gracias, Presidenta. First of all, I would like to thank the petitioners for signaling this very important topic. It is, of course, not the first time that the Petition Committee and overall the European Parliament is discussing this matter, and I'm afraid it's not the last time that we try to make advancement on this dossier. I would like to thank the Commission's opinion. I think Mr. de Colombier seemed really engaged in this topic, and on their side they try to do something, but it's really not easy, since the Commission has no real mandate to negotiate an agreement with the US. It is the Member States who have this prerogative. Nevertheless, of course, we cannot neglect the situation of European citizens that face this problem, and particularly I think it's very important, the discrimination aspect, as our petition committee often recognizes, but also data protection of European citizens who may have been born in the US, but then they had practically no more activity in the US. They are a full European citizens, and their data flows into the US due to these agreements with member states. So from the side of the EPP group, we remain fully committed to protect the European citizens, and we would like to keep this file open. What other steps we could do as European Parliament, as institution, that we send a letter to the new US administration, hoping that indeed they open some new perspectives. They are more open, more willing to open this question with the aim to solve it, and to solve it in the favor of the European, rightfully European citizens. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. San, S&D.
Thank you, Chair. I too would like first to thank the petitioners for the efforts they have put in to raise awareness about the issues posed by the FATCA. Campaigning and awareness raising have intensified over the past years and months and have brought to light on the discriminations faced by these citizens. Different parliamentary committees were alerted. In November 2019, for instance, this committee had organised a hearing on FATCA and its extraterritorial impact on EU citizens. And the ECOFIN formation in the Council also took hold of the topic last year. These are good signs, showing that lawmakers are acknowledging that there is a problem. It is a fact that the US FATCA creates a number of obstacles for a range of individuals, not only sole US citizens resident in an EU member state, as we've just heard, but also identified EU-US dual citizens living in EU member states and so-called accidental Americans that are EU-US dual citizens, plus EU spouses of US citizens that do not carry US citizenship. All these, they all amount to a considerable number of people. It can create uncertainty as to personal investments, retirements, accounts, but it can also lead to situations where these citizens are financial pariahs, not able to obtain access to basic bank accounts in the EU, or faced with the unnecessary closure of the bank accounts due to lack of certainty about sanctions. In more complex setups, as we've also heard, like for investment brokers, where the European MiFID II pre-IIPS regulations require investment products sold to US citizens to contain key information document, no American funds are willing to provide such info, and investment possibilities are obstructed. EU financial operators, like EU citizens, should be able to exercise their right to trade freely within the MiFID II and PRIIPS frameworks. This situation needs to be addressed. Concerns about FATCA are well known. There is its extraterritorial nature that the EU seems to have accepted. It is non-reciprocal in character, so that significant flows of data go towards the US without any equivalent information coming from the US. And then there is the disproportionate application. The petitioners know these characteristics well. We should therefore support their claims and propose that the European Parliament keeps this particular dialogue with them open, so as to create a sounding board for their campaign, till workable solutions are found. The members of the European Parliament US parliamentary delegation could be informed too about this, and invited to use their contacts and influence to help bring about change. Finally, I would propose and agree that this committee calls on the European Security and Markets Authority, ESMA, to launch an investigation into the disproportionate consequences of FATCA and its incongruences with EU law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Inval, Renew Group.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of remarks in random order. Let me start by pointing out that we are not talking about dual citizens. We're not talking about American citizens. We're talking about EU citizens. They're EU citizens and we are responsible. I'm very touched by the anger and the despair expressed by Mr. Arias, which I think is felt by the many other victims of FATCA. And if you put yourselves in their position, I think you can fully understand because they feel, and they are, being stonewalled. They've been stonewalled for years. They've been stonewalled by the Commission, stonewalled by the national governments, stonewalled by the Americans. And yes, the European Parliament has been, trying to reach out and speak out for them. But, if I listen to the complaints, we as members of Parliament should pay heed. If citizens do not feel heard by the European Parliament, then we're not getting it right. I say that to all of us. I think what we're looking at here is a total and complete failure of the public authorities that are supposed to serve the citizens. I make a parallel which will be recognized by the Dutch petitioners, the so-called toeslagenaffaire, whereby the Dutch tax authorities have been for years engaging in racial profiling, blacklisting people and destroying lives in a way that's really beyond belief. And we're looking at something very similar here. And people are, and it was the same in the Dutch case with the tax authorities, people weren't heard. They were complaining, they were speaking out, but they too were stonewalled until the scandal erupted and the ball started to roll. I have been personally looking into this matter for 9 years now, more than 9 years, 9.5 years. I don't want to be celebrating the 10-year anniversary of this case. It's ridiculous. And I hear what Mr. Ducolombier is saying, and I would also like to point out to the petitioners, don't direct your anger at the civil servants. They are doing their job. They are committed. But the responsibility lies firmly with the national governments and with the European Commission. But national governments first and foremost. Now, allocating responsibility doesn't mean, passing on the hot potato. Responsibility is about taking responsibility. So it is time for the member state governments, first of all, to stand up for their own citizens. Again, not dual citizens, not American citizens, European citizens, national citizens. And secondly, the European Commission. Now, I think the core of the problem is the disgracefully submissive attitude of the European Union to the United States. And it's interesting that in recent weeks, with everything that happened in Afghanistan, all of a sudden there is a new debate in Europe whereby Europeans find that the Trump doctrine of America first is actually not the Trump doctrine, it's just the American doctrine that still applies. And Europe should, stop and think. Yes, the Americans are our best friends and allies, but we should be defending our own interests. We should be defending the interests of our own citizens. So do the Americans, and it's completely legitimate, but we are responsible for our own citizens. And that means, and here I'm coming back to the Commission as well, if we engage in talks with the Americans, we shouldn't be asking them, we have to demand. It's about the rights of our citizens. Now, what can we do concretely? Because I don't like just debates where we just pay lip service. I want us to do something. And I realize we're not going to solve this problem overnight because the political will is clearly not there with the member states and with the Commission or with the American administration. But I think there is a couple of things that we can do concretely. First of all, I would like to ask you officially, Madam Chair, to write to the European Commission and insist that the Commission enforces the GDPR and demands that the DPA, the Data Protection Authorities, and the EDPB do their job. They are obliged to enforce the GDPR. It's not optional, and they shouldn't be passing around the hot potato, as I said earlier. So I would ask you kindly to write such a letter to the European Commission and a similar letter to the EDPB, insisting that they do their job. Because the EDPB is responsible, not just the national DPA, but also the EDPB. Then I think we should also write a letter to the 3 commissioners responsible, pointing out the problems with data protection, the financial rules and the transatlantic relations. I think this is something that Mr. Borrell should also be looking into. Then I would suggest, Madam Chair, that the Petitions Committee also organises a hearing with the US authorities, and we could invite, for example, the US ambassador to the European Union, but also try and set up an online connection with our colleagues, our counterparts in the US Congress. And finally, I would suggest, and I'm not a lawyer, so I have to check if this is possible, but I suggest that if any citizen brings a case before the ECJ, that this House, if possible, decides to join that case as an amicus curiae, to give support to the case. I mean, those are a couple of avenues, concrete suggestions that I would like to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor to Ms. Vedren, EPP Group.
Thank you, Chair. Merci beaucoup.
Renew, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Merci beaucoup aux pétitionnaires et merci beaucoup à tous les collègues. Et je salue aussi l'implication de Sophie in 't Veld, elle l'a rappelé depuis de très nombreuses années pour soutenir justement, comme elle l'a bien dit, nos citoyens, les citoyens européens, appelés américains accidentels, mais qui font l'objet d'une situation insoutenable. Parce que c'est bien l'enjeu, c'est comment accepter que des lois américaines s'appliquent en Europe et discriminent, comme ça a été très justement dit, nos propres citoyens qui, eux, respectent la loi. Et on le voit bien, il y a quelques États qui se penchent sur la question, la Commission européenne aussi, mais il n'y a pas d'efficacité, il n'y a pas de changement réel pour nos citoyens et c'est inacceptable. Je souhaite aussi soutenir les initiatives qui ont été proposées par Sophie in 't Veld. Je crois que c'est extrêmement important sur la mise en œuvre du RGPD, c'est fondamental. Et puis, on le sait bien, on le voit bien, ce débat sur FATCA, c'est plus globalement le débat que nous avons dans la Commission Commerce International sur l'extraterritorialité. Et on voit la faiblesse des réponses qui sont apportées sur cet enjeu de manière globale. On pousse dans cette commission, notamment pour un nouvel instrument pour lutter contre les mesures coercitives. Il faut que l'extraterritorialité soit prise en considération, à la fois pour défendre les intérêts de nos entreprises et aussi et surtout la vie de nos concitoyens. C'est bien notre rôle. Juste peut-être une remarque. Je crois qu'il ne faudra pas être totalement dupe non plus sur le fait, et on s'en réjouit tous, qu'il y ait une nouvelle administration américaine. Mais tous ces sujets sur l'extraterritorialité n'étaient pas liés qu'à Donald Trump. Il fait effectivement travailler avec les Américains. La Commission européenne a dit tout le travail qui est fait d'un point de vue démocratique, mais ne soyons pas naïfs. Il faut véritablement construire cette autonomie stratégique au service de tous nos intérêts et au service de nos citoyens. C'est fondamental. Donc vraiment, j'apporte tout mon soutien aux pétitionnaires et ils savent qu'ils peuvent compter sur le groupe Renew à leur côté.
Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor again to the petitioners. 2 minutes to conclude. So let's start for the first petitioner.
It would be a grave mistake to but trust this commission. Monsieur de Colombier is undoubtedly a formidable actor, but he never addressed, and nobody has addressed, discrimination in Euratom and the Commission's Shore and Next Generation Bonds prospectuses. I find this a scandal. The von der Leyen Commission is, to our view, a totally unfit guardian of the treaties. I'll explain. Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis, who had financial markets in his portfolio under the Juncker Commission, said nothing about discrimination for 5 years. Is this why, Madame von der Leyen, you promoted him to executive vice president of this commission? Commissioner Vera Jourova, who was Commissioner of Justice under the Juncker Commission and also said nothing about discrimination, was also promoted to vice president by Madame von der Leyen. Ms. Jourova is now in charge, now listen to this, to the portfolio of values and transparency, and that includes the respect and the charter and the rule of law, which Monsieur de Colombier seems to forget. Commissioner Paolo Gentiloni says the opposite of Monsieur Colombier, exactly the opposite. He tells our MEPs, quote, FATCA's consequences are not within the remit of the EU because there is no breach of EU law, unquote. Is this some kind of a joke? No. Welcome to the von der Leyen Commission. De nuevo, gracias, señora presidenta. Y ya está pronto, espero.
Muchas gracias. Ahora pasaríamos al siguiente peticionario.
Thank you very much for your time. I was just listening to the. Oh yeah, I'll do it again in Dutch because I'm Dutch. I'm a European Dutch. I have a complaint also about the PETI Commission because I noticed when you dan bezoek je de website van de PETI-commissie en wat blijkt, je moet door 8 vragen heen worstelen die er random aan je worden gepresenteerd. Maar gelukkig, voor meer informatie kan je artikel 227 van het verdrag betreffende de werking van de Europese Unie bekijken. Nou, ik zou zeggen succes. Ik ben verder gekomen door trial and error, maar wat heb ik eigenlijk gedaan? Deze procedure is lang aangekaart bij de PETI-commissie en wat hebben ze ermee gedaan? Wederom niks. Mijn petitie kon worden gesteund door ondertekening door supporters. En wat kreeg ik te horen van deze mensen die het wel wilden doen? Ik ga het niet doen. Weet je hoeveel privégegevens je allemaal moet invullen? Het gaat toch ook om de dataprotectie? Nee, sorry. Dat ga ik niet doen. Zoveel vertrouwen hebben de burgers in de GDPR en de AVG. Dus weg met die dataprotectie. Jullie gebruiken dat niet. En dan kom ik even terug op wat al eerder een beetje werd verteld over... Waarom wilden de heren zoals de heer Moscovici niet toegeven toen hij toenmalig minister van Financiën van Frankrijk aan de verdering stond van de IGA en met haar FATCA? Dat hij net als destijds onze Nederlandse staatssecretaris Financiën, de heer Wekers, wist dat hun landgenoten en Europese burgers hard zouden raken. De heer Moscovici werd zelfs Europese commissaris en moest ons gaan vertegenwoordigen voor de economische en financiële zaken. Hier had hij de echte mogelijkheid om te doen wat Europese staatsburgers van hem verwachten. Opkomen voor de rechten. En nu zit er opgeschreven met de heer Gentiloni. Ten tijde van de onderhandelingen over FATCA was hij toen niet minister van Buitenlandse Zaken Italië. En nu doet hij net als een neusbloed. De volksvertegenwoordiging schandalig. Veel van uw staatsburgers is het leven werkelijk tot een hel gemaakt. Normaal meedraaien in het dagelijks leven wordt er ontnomen. Hiervoor heb ik ook een zwartboek toegevoegd aan mijn petitie. Lees dat. Wanneer gaat u dan ineens begrijpen dat het schrijven van een liefdesbrief aan Amerika niet werkt? Ik heb het net ook weer gehoord door de heer Vinci. Het heeft geen zin. Ik kan u nu garanderen, het is al lang het nieuws, FATCA 2 komt eraan. Dus actie nu. Respecteer uw staatsburgers. Dank u vriendelijk.
Thank you very much. Now the third petitioner.
Thank you. While I'm encouraged by some of the statements that the Commission believes that it has a constructive dialogue with the US administration, I would note that these encouraging signals may be of limited value. Agencies such as the IRS are bound by the wishes of the US Congress, which routinely characterizes any US citizen residing outside of the United States as a wealthy offshore tax cheat, despite all evidence to the contrary. Both the executive branch through the Treasury and the legislative branch through Congress have a multitude of proposals on the table, including the taxation of non-resident, non-US citizen spouses of Americans who have not filed jointly before, hefty taxes on renunciation of citizenship, additional tax reporting requirements for foreign financial institutions, namely that of a 1099 tax form, increased American taxation of small businesses based solely in Europe on the basis of them being held by Americans, and the automated imposition of $10,000 penalties on the basis of self-reported FBAR declarations that do not match the EU-provided data sent under the FATCA IGAs. Such data processing fundamentally violates GDPR and was a major contributor to the Toeslagen affair that Sophie in 't Veld cited. In fact, a critic of the proposal also cited the Toeslagen affair in the US Congress. There may be positive signs of a one-on-one dialogue, but the public actions show a rapidly deteriorating situation. I will also note that my petition is not seeking a unique carve-out of laws. The Netherlands openly claims that US laws supersede EU and Dutch laws against non-discrimination out of practical extraterritorial reasons. So this is not a unique carve-out. The reality is we've already accepted that some discrimination is acceptable and that some EU law already doesn't apply. I'm going to close with a question. Is the Commission aware that by virtue of an investment being managed by a European Union company rather than an American one, tax penalties are imposed on individuals that ultimately exceed the value of the investment? The discrimination has been accepted for many years.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask a question to the Commission. If they think that if we are sending a formal letter to the United States administration, would mean something positive?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sure it would have a positive effect. Such letters have been sent by the presidency. I mentioned the German presidency in December, and again contacts with the Portuguese presidency in April, May. So I'm convinced that a letter from the European Parliament could also contribute to obtaining some positive outcomes. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the Parliament is certainly taken seriously. So if we can have the Council, the Commission, and the Parliament all converging, that can only be good. And as I said, we feel that there is a more constructive spirit, if you wish, around the table. But I agree, we should not be angels here. We should not be naive. I mean, this is still. I mean, it's more a change of tone than a change of substance. But we've achieved already some concrete improvements. So let's continue. And if the Parliament can join the battlefield, as it were, I'm sure it would have a positive impact.
Thank you very much. A ver. Lo primero, después de haber escuchado a los peticionarios, a la comisión y también a todos los miembros de esta comisión, dejamos abiertas las 3 peticiones. También les quería decir que la propia Comisión de Peticiones ya se ha puesto en contacto con el Congreso y el Senado de Estados Unidos a través de carta y jamás hemos recibido contestación alguna. Lo digo por la petición, ¿no?, correcta de la señora Invel. Entonces, la decisión que tomaríamos, aparte de mantenerlas abiertas, es primero enviar una carta al Consejo pidiendo que el tema figure en el orden del día en el momento oportuno y que los Estados miembros encuentren soluciones. 2, enviar carta formal a los comisarios relacionados con el tema, que serían el financiero, la protección de datos y también el de exteriores, ¿no?, el alto representante por las relaciones transatlánticas. Así como pediríamos a la Comisión, en estas cartas, pediríamos, por tanto, a los comisarios responsables y que la Comisión adopte nuevas iniciativas para encontrar soluciones con el nuevo gobierno de los Estados Unidos y que a la vez nos vaya manteniendo informados. Poca cosa más podemos pedir, ya que lo que le decía antes a la señora Invel es que esta comisión ya nos hemos puesto en contacto con el Congreso y el Senado de Estados Unidos y no hemos tenido ningún tipo de respuesta. Yo creo que esa iniciativa que usted proponía de una relación bilateral de los legisladores americanos juntamente con los legisladores europeos sería una muy buena iniciativa, pero nosotros ya nos hemos puesto en contacto y no hemos recibido ningún tipo de comunicación. No sé si quizás sería una buena decisión también enviar esta petición al grupo de Estados Unidos, a la delegación de Estados Unidos aquí en el Parlamento, ya que ellos mantienen constantemente relación con los legisladores, Congreso y Senado de los Estados Unidos. Dígame, señora Invel. Yes.
No, just another thought. We could also contact directly Mr. Stavros Lambrinidis, who is the EU ambassador to the United States and who's also a former member of this House, former member of Libe, somebody who, who knows the case. So I would suggest that we also contact him directly.
Well, it's a good idea. So we are going to do all these things, the 3 commissioners, the Council, the United States delegation here in the Parliament, perhaps they can help and explain them that we didn't receive anything about the Senate and the Parliament, the Congress of the United States, and then the ambassador of the European Union in Washington. Yeah, it's a good idea. Okay, so thank you very much to all of you.